In ancient Thessaly, there lived a woman named Caenis, known far and wide for her beauty, but, more importantly, for her fierce independence. Unlike many women of her time, she longed for more than what life had laid before her. The gods, who often watched the lives of mortals from their celestial thrones, took notice of Caenis, especially Poseidon, the god of the sea. One day, while she walked alone along the rocky shores, Poseidon rose from the crashing waves and approached her. Though gods are often known for their impetuousness, Caenis stood unflinching before him. And it was in this moment of powerlessness, of facing a god's will, that a fire ignited within her soul. Poseidon, struck by her strength of spirit, offered Caenis a boon to atone for the harm he had caused her. She could ask for anything. Caenis, aware of the fleeting safety and vulnerability that came with being a woman in her world, made a choice that would forever change her destiny. She asked Poseidon not only to turn her into a man, but to grant her invulnerability so she would never again know the fear of being overpowered or hurt. Surprised by her request, Poseidon granted it, transforming her body instantly. She felt her limbs grow stronger, her form broaden and harden like bronze. Caenis was no more. She was now Caeneus, an unbreakable warrior. As Caeneus adjusted to this new identity, there was a profound change not only in body, but also in spirit. The weight of vulnerability, once ever present, had lifted from her shoulders. Now as Caeneus, the world viewed him differently. No longer was he just a woman bound by society's expectations. He was powerful, feared, and revered. The freedom was intoxicating. Caeneus roamed the land, seeking out challenges, testing the limits of his new form. His strength seemed limitless, and soon tales of his deeds spread across Greece. The once quiet Caenis had become a legend. Caeneus's feats of strength were unmatched. From the arenas to the battlefields, his name became synonymous with invincibility. Not even the sharpest swords or the strongest men could bring him down. With every victory, Caeneus grew more confident, his once hidden rage against the world now channeled into his power as a warrior. He stood tall, unshakable, a symbol of defiance against the limitations imposed on him in his past life. Yet beneath the surface of his impenetrable skin, something deeper stirred, an unspoken conflict about identity and the burden of invulnerability. The gods, ever watchful, continued to observe Caeneus's journey with interest. His legendary strength and invulnerability had reached every corner of Greece, and it wasn't long before he was invited to a grand celebration, the wedding of Pirithous, king of the Lapiths, and the beautiful Hippodamia. The feast promised to be a day of joy and revelry, but under the surface, tension brewed like a storm on the horizon. The centaurs, half man, half horse, had been invited as guests, though their wild and untamed nature was a cause for concern. Caeneus' presence at the event was not only expected, but a statement of strength and authority, his name alone inspiring both awe and fear. Yet no one could predict that this joyous occasion would soon spiral into chaos. The wedding began peacefully, with music filling the air and the scent of roasted meats and honeyed wine drifting across the banquet. The guests, dressed in their finest, laughed and toasted to the union of the king and queen. But as the day wore on, the centaurs, emboldened by drink, began to lose control. Their eyes glazed with intoxication, and their laughter turned to jeers. Soon they set their sights on the women, harassing and pulling them from their seats, their rough hands tearing at delicate fabrics. The air, once light with celebration, thickened with tension as screams and cries pierced through the music. Caeneus, standing tall amidst the chaos, could not stand for such dishonor. His eyes blazed with righteous fury as he drew his sword, the steel glinting in the sunlight. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, placing himself between the women and the centaurs, his mere presence like a wall of iron. "Enough!" his voice thundered, cutting through the madness. The centaurs, drunk on both wine and arrogance, laughed at first, but they quickly realized their mistake. This was no ordinary man standing before them. It was Caeneus, the invincible warrior. But the battle that followed was anything but ordinary. With a swift and brutal grace, Caeneus led the charge, his sword slicing through the air. The clash of steel and the thunder of hooves echoed as the Lapiths joined the fray, determined to protect their king's celebration. Yet it was Caeneus, unbreakable and fierce, who stood at the center of it all, his indestructible body pushing through the sea of centaurs. One after another, the centaurs fell before him, their attacks useless against his impenetrable skin. But with every strike, their hatred of him grew. His power, once a source of admiration, now burned in their hearts like a bitter poison. Resentment filled their eyes as they realized no weapon could harm him. It was no longer just a battle, it was a fight to destroy the unbreakable. Caeneus fought with the strength of a storm, his blade flashing as he cut down centaurs with terrifying precision. The clang of steel against hooves rang through the air, mingling with the cries of rage and pain. The once green earth was now slick with blood, and yet Caeneus remained untouched, his invulnerable body gleaming beneath the sun. But as the centaurs fell, their desperation only grew. Their blows glanced off him like water on stone, and each failed strike fanned their fury. No longer was this a battle for victory, it had become a frenzy, a hunt, with Caenis standing unshaken in the heart of the storm. He was everything they could never be, indestructible, untouchable, a living monument to their own limits. With their weapons useless, the centaurs' tactics shifted. Rage twisted their faces as they threw aside swords and spears, turning instead to the raw power of the land itself. In a frenzied rush, they began to circle him, not with steel but with their sheer numbers. Massive trees were uprooted, boulders pried from the earth, and the very ground trembled as they hurled everything they could find toward him. For the first time, Caeneus felt the weight of his enemies, not in combat, but in their combined strength. The sky darkened with dust and debris as they buried him beneath a growing mountain of earth and stone. Logs splintered as they slammed into the pile, soil choking the air. Trapped under the weight of the world, Caeneus could feel the earth closing in around him, not breaking him, but entombing him in a prison of invulnerability. With each rock and tree thrown, the ground rose higher around Caeneus. The centaurs, now a mob, buried him beneath the weight of the forest itself. Caeneus, uninjured but trapped, could feel the immense pressure closing in around him. The invincibility that had once made him unstoppable now felt like a cage, an armor that could not break, but also could not move. His breath came harder, the earth pressing against his chest, and for the first time, he realized the price of invulnerability. Strength without escape had become his undoing. Trapped beneath the rubble, Caeneus strained against the crushing weight, pushing against the earth with all his might. He had faced countless enemies and had always emerged victorious, but now the very land itself was against him. His muscles ached as he fought to free himself, yet the more he struggled, the deeper he seemed to sink. The trees, the rocks, the soil, all of it pressed down on him like an ocean of despair. The tension of his isolation in that moment grew unbearable. High above, the gods watched the scene unfold, their faces impassive as they witnessed the fall of a hero they themselves had helped create. Poseidon, the god who had granted Caeneus his invulnerability, remained silent. Perhaps he, too, recognized the irony of the gift he had given. For the gods, this was not a battle of right or wrong, but a reminder of the delicate balance of power. Invincibility, they knew, could only carry a mortal so far before the weight of the world became too much. As the dust settled and the battle ended, silence hung in the air. The centaurs, triumphant, stood over the mound of earth where Caeneus had once stood. There was no sound from beneath the rubble, no movement. The invincible warrior, once feared and revered, was now buried in the very earth he had fought to protect. The victory, however, felt hollow. For in defeating Caeneus, the centaurs had not just won a battle, they had witnessed the fall of a legend. The air grew still, heavy with the weight of unspoken loss. In the aftermath of the battle, the Lapiths gathered at the burial site, paying homage to the hero who had once stood invincible. Though his body could not be harmed, Caeneus had been defeated by the sheer weight of the earth itself. His invincibility had been his greatest strength and his ultimate weakness. The Lapiths mourned the loss of their champion, knowing that his sacrifice had saved many lives. Yet the question lingered. Had Caeneus been truly free, or had the very power he sought bound him to a fate he could not escape? But Caeneus' story did not end with his burial. As the gods are often kind to those who suffer greatly, it is said that Caeneus, in death, was transformed into a great bird, soaring free from the earth that had trapped him. His spirit, unbroken, flew beyond the reach of mortal limitations, freed from the weight of invulnerability. In this new form, Caeneus found a freedom he had never known in life, soaring high above the world he had once walked. The tale of Caeneus became a cautionary legend for all who heard it. Strength, though a blessing, is never without its cost. His transformation, first from a woman to a man, and then from mortal to legend, revealed the hidden burdens that come with power. Invincibility, once a gift of ultimate freedom, soon became his prison. He could not be hurt by blade or spear, but neither could he escape the relentless weight of the world itself. The gods had granted him strength, but in doing so, they had set the stage for his inevitable downfall. The legend of Caeneus lingered in the hearts of poets and the whispers of storytellers, passed down through generations like a haunting melody. He was not remembered merely as an indomitable warrior, but as a symbol of profound transformation and resilience. His life embodied the delicate balance between strength and vulnerability. His triumphs were extraordinary, but his defeat, buried beneath the weight of earth and stone, spoke to a deeper truth, that even the invincible can be undone, not by the weapons of men, but by the very forces of nature they sought to defy. In the end, Caeneus' story serves as a reminder that no matter how powerful we become, the world's greater forces can never truly be mastered.